The message arrives at 13:45 local time. It contains no text, no audio, no images. Just a 3-digit authentication code, 7-7-1, displayed in stark white numerals on the flat black screen of a modified Mossad spec Android device. The device's casing is a generic polycarbonate shell, but its kernel has been hardened at a secure facility in Glilot. Its transmission suite stripped and replaced with a proprietary encryption layer operating on a quantum-keyed burst transmission protocol. In the cramped, heat-soaked interior of the rented Renault Fluence, parked 200 meters down a sun-drenched street in Sfax, Tunisia, the team leader, call sign Gad, glances at his IWC pilot's watch chronograph. He registers the time but doesn't acknowledge the message. He doesn't need to. The man in the passenger seat, Lev, has already seen the identical code flash on his own device. Lev's hand rests on the polymer grip of a Beretta 71 pistol, a .22 LR caliber weapon selected for its proven reliability and low report. It is concealed in a custom Kydex holster bolted directly to the vehicle chassis under the dashboard. A non-standard modification performed 2 nights prior in a rented garage. The weapon is cool from the car's struggling air conditioner. His hand is not. Across the street, a second vehicle, a white Peugeot partner van with the faded, peeling logo of a local plumbing company, sits motionless in a designated loading zone. Inside, 2 more men, the secondary element, wait. They are the containment and support team, the insurance policy. Their call sign is Hammer. Gad's 2-man element is Nail. The entire operation has been codenamed Sundial, a direct reference to the target's obsessive, unwavering adherence to a precise daily schedule. For 6 weeks, a separate surveillance team has logged his every move, building a pattern-of-life analysis so detailed it could predict his arrival times to within a 90-second window. They know he departs his workshop, a small engineering consultancy that is a front for his real work, at exactly 13:30. He stops for bread at a specific bakery at 13:40, purchasing 2 baguettes. He arrives home on this street between 13:50 and 13:55. He has never once deviated. It is the discipline of a meticulous engineer. It is the tactical vulnerability that is about to ensure his death. The target's vehicle, a gray Peugeot 208, is now 90 seconds from their position. The confirmation came not as a voice transmission, but as a single 128-bit data packet from a spotter, call sign Miriam, posing as a university student at a cafe 2 blocks away. Her trigger was a simple, pre-arranged physical movement, adjusting her sunglasses with her left hand. The movement was captured by a micro camera embedded in a faux advertisement on the cafe's window, which relayed the image through a micro repeater hidden inside a storm drain grate. From there, the signal was bounced to a low-orbit communications satellite in a polar orbit, downlinked to a Mossad listening post in the Negev desert, and then retransmitted securely back to the Renault in Sfax. The entire process took 0.8 seconds. The technology is flawless. The plan is meticulous. But the human element is always the unquantifiable variable. Lev's breathing is steady, a controlled cadence of 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, a technique practiced to suppress the physiological effects of adrenaline. God watches the street, his eyes scanning not for the target, but for anomalies. A woman pushes a stroller. A group of teenagers laugh as they walk past, absorbed in their phones. Normal life, the perfect operational camouflage. The Peugeot 208 turns the corner. It's him. Mohammed Zouari. The asset file codename, the Albatross. The man who single-handedly transformed Hamas's drone program from a nuisance into a strategic threat. Gad's thumb presses a button on the side of his device, sending a single, silent pulse. A vibration is felt in the Hammer van, a haptic alert confirming the final command. It is the go signal. The intercept is about to begin. The van's engine starts, a low diesel rumble. The plan dictates it will pull out precisely 7 seconds after the Peugeot passes it, blocking the street and forcing the target to a sudden stop. Then Nail will move in. Gad and Lev, 2 shooters, 15 rounds total, maximum efficiency, minimum exposure. The plan is designed to be over in 7 seconds from the moment the Peugeot stops. But a new variable appears. A garbage truck, a large lumbering Isuzu, turns into the street from a side alley they had previously mapped as a dead end for commercial traffic. It was not on any municipal schedule they had cross-referenced. Its diesel engine groans, its air brakes hiss, and it positions itself directly in the path of the Hammer van. The primary intercept is compromised. Gad has less than 5 seconds to process the new reality and make a decision. Abort, and the target is alerted by the unusual presence of the team. The entire 6-month, multi-million-dollar operation potentially burned. Proceed, and they must improvise a new intercept protocol in real time with 0 margin for error on a live street. He sees the Peugeot approaching, the driver completely unaware. He sees the garbage truck blocking his support team, their mission now reduced to observation and emergency extraction. The 771 code on his screen seems to pulse. It wasn't just an activation code. It was a non-discretionary execution order, issued directly from the Mossad director's office. The intelligence that triggered it indicated Zouari was hours away from transmitting the final schematics for his underwater drone project to a Hamas server in Lebanon. The mission proceeds, no matter what. Gad looks at Lev. He doesn't speak. He taps his own driver's side window twice with his index finger. The new plan is communicated in that simple, rehearsed gesture. Plan B7. Rolling intercept. Driver's side engagement. There will be no block from Hammer. There will be a dynamic overtake. A far more dangerous, far more public maneuver that exposes them for a longer duration. The 7-second operation just became an unknown quantity. The chronometer on Gad's wrist ticks past 1351. The Albatross is now just 50 meters away, driving toward them. The quiet street in Sfax is about to become a dateline in a shadow war that spans continents. A war fought not with armies, but with engineers, intelligence analysts, and small teams of men capable of brutal, calculated violence. This story doesn't begin in Sfax. It begins 2 years and 4 months earlier, in the skies over southern Israel, during the 50-day conflict known as Operation Protective Edge. At a David Sling Battery Control Center near Ashkelon, an IAF officer watched as an unidentified track, too slow for a rocket and on the wrong trajectory for a mortar, crossed into Israeli airspace from Gaza. For the first time, Hamas deployed a new weapon from its arsenal: unmanned aerial vehicles, drones. The intercept order was given. A Patriot missile, costing $3 million, streaked into the sky and obliterated a target that analysts later estimated cost less than $5,000 to build. The cost-exchange ratio was unsustainable, a strategic nightmare. The initial models were crude, based on the Iranian Ababil-1, with a limited range and a rudimentary GPS guidance system. Their real value was not in the small explosive payloads they could carry, but in reconnaissance and psychological warfare. Most were shot down. But a few got through. One crashed near Kibbutz Nahalaz. Another was recovered almost intact from the Mediterranean by a Shaldag commando unit on a naval patrol. The wreckage was sent to Unit 8200, Israel's Signals Intelligence and Cyber Warfare Division, at a secure facility near Herzliya. Inside the drone's carbon fiber fuselage, analysts found something that triggered alarms at the highest levels. The core components, the servos, the two-stroke engine, were Iranian-sourced, as expected. But the flight control board, the machine's central nervous system, was different. It was a custom-designed 8-layer printed circuit board, far more sophisticated than the off-the-shelf components they expected. Its radio frequency hopping algorithm was more advanced, operating across a wider spectrum, making it significantly harder to jam. The board integrated an ARM Cortex-M4 microprocessor, a component with processing power far exceeding the requirements for a simple guidance system. It wasn't an Iranian upgrade. It was the work of a dedicated, highly skilled engineer. A ghost in the machine. Finding this ghost became a top priority for the Mossad. The search was assigned to a man known within the agency only as Ariel. Ariel was a legend in the Tzomet department, the division responsible for recruiting and running human intelligence assets. He was in his late 50s, with the quiet, unassuming demeanor of a university history professor, complete with worn tweed jackets and a faint aroma of pipe tobacco. But his career was a catalog of the Mossad's most audacious operations. He had run the agent network that pinpointed the location of Hezbollah's security chief, Imad Mughnieh, in Damascus. That operation, a joint effort with the CIA, was a success, but it came at a cost. One of Ariel's key assets on the ground, a Syrian official with a family, was compromised and executed. The loss had instilled in Ariel a fanatical devotion to meticulous, layered planning, to eliminating every conceivable variable. He treated every operation like a sealed mathematical equation. No unknowns were permitted. He was the perfect man to hunt a ghost. His first move was to assemble a dedicated task force. For technical analysis, he requisitioned Dalia, a rising star from the Caesarea department, Mossad's Special Operations Division. Dalia was a former prodigy from the IDF's Mamram computing unit. Her specialty was not brute force hacking, but exploiting the human element in digital systems. She had famously gained access to an Iranian centrifuge facility's control system, not by cracking their firewall, but by identifying a single, disgruntled German contractor who serviced their Siemens controllers. In a flashback to that operation, we see Dalia in a darkened command room, her face illuminated by 6 monitors. She's guiding a low-level asset, a cleaner inside the German engineering firm, via a text-only secure chat. Klaus is at his desk. He just finished his coffee. He always checks the betting odds on his phone now. Wait for him to input his password. The keylogger you installed will capture it. Do not move. The asset is terrified, his hands shaking. Dalia's text is calm, authoritative. Now, walk past his desk. Drop the papers. As you pick them up, switch his personal USB drive with the duplicate. The duplicate contains a 0-day exploit disguised as a PDF of his daughter's school newsletter. He will take it home tonight. He will plug it into his personal laptop. His laptop will then create a secure tunnel through his company's VPN when he logs in tomorrow morning. We will own their network by Eero 900. Dalia understood that every digital fortress has a human door. For the field operations lead, Ariel selected Gad. Gad was a former Sayeret Matkal officer, Israel's premier special forces unit. He was lean, observant, and spoke 4 languages fluently, including Arabic with a flawless Maghrebi accent acquired during a deep cover operation in Casablanca. Gad's unique skill was what Mossad planners called practical improvisation. He could see a problem developing and instantly calculate multiple solutions, selecting the optimal one in seconds. This was not a theoretical skill. It had been forged under fire. Years earlier, during a mission in the dense labyrinthine Dahieh suburb of Beirut, God's four-man team was tasked with planting a listening device in the office of a mid-level Hezbollah logistics commander. The insertion was smooth, but their exfiltration was compromised by a chance encounter with a Hezbollah patrol. Within minutes, the building was surrounded. They were trapped on the third floor of a 6-story apartment block, with the only stairwell controlled by heavily armed militants. A firefight was suicide. Ariel, their handler on that mission as well, was on the comms link from a command post miles away, his voice a calm stream of tactical data. Hostile element at north entrance, 4 men, AK-74s. Secondary element moving to secure the roof, Ariel stated. Gad looked at his team, their faces grim in the dim hallway light. Their training dictated they barricade. Gad saw a different solution. He pointed to the apartment door next to them. Breach, silent. Using a Halligan bar, they popped the lock with a single, muffled crack. Inside, a terrified family was watching television. Gad, speaking in perfect Lebanese Arabic, held up a hand. "We are not here for you. Be silent and you will live." While one of his men kept the family quiet, Gad moved to the kitchen. He saw a large pan of oil on the stove. He turned the burner to high. To his comms unit, he whispered, "Ariel, I am changing the geometry. Alert local fire brigade in 5 minutes. Report a kitchen fire at this address. Use a civilian line." Ariel paused for only a second. "Understood." Gad waited until the oil began to smoke, then threw a wet dish towel into the pan. The effect was instantaneous and violent. A huge plume of thick, acrid smoke billowed out. He then smashed a bottle of olive oil on the floor. He instructed the family to scream. The chaos was his cover. The Hezbollah militants outside, seeing the smoke and hearing the screams, were momentarily confused. Their primary mission was to capture Israeli commandos, not deal with a domestic fire. As the first distant sirens began to wail, the militants' command structure hesitated. Gad's team, now wearing simple jackets and face coverings taken from the apartment, joined the rush of other residents evacuating. They moved with the panicked crowd, their faces showing the same fear and confusion. They walked right past the Hezbollah checkpoint, their weapons concealed. Just another group of civilians escaping a fire. They were clear of the building before the first fire truck arrived. God didn't just solve the problem. He had created a new, bigger problem for his enemy to solve, and used the resulting confusion as his exit strategy. That was why Ariel chose him for Sundial. The target of this new team was a blank file, codenamed the Albatross, for the impressive range and stability of his drone designs. The first break came not from satellites or spies, but from meticulous supply chain analysis. Dahlia's team at Unit 8200 identified the specific RM Cortex M4 microprocessor. It was a high-grade industrial component, not easily acquired by embargoed groups. They traced its batch number. The manufacturer was a firm in Switzerland. The Swiss company, under pressure from a combination of diplomatic channels and a subtle cyber threat from Dahlia's team that demonstrated full access to their corporate servers, provided a list of distributors. The batch had been sold to a holding company in Cyprus. That company sold it to a larger electronics supplier in Istanbul. The trail was a deliberately constructed labyrinth. But Dahlia's team found a vulnerability. The Turkish supplier's internal server had a classic SQL injection vulnerability in its online client portal. In a single night, they exfiltrated terabytes of data. Shipping manifests, client lists, invoices, private emails of the sales staff. They fed this data into a purpose-built analytical program codenamed Chimera, which cross-referenced it with flight records, phone geolocation data, and financial transactions from a dozen other intelligence databases. For 3 weeks, the algorithm churned, its machine learning protocols identifying faint correlations invisible to human analysts. Finally, it produced a single name with a 97.4% probability match: Mohammed Zouari. The file began to fill. Born in Sfax, Tunisia, in 1967. An aerospace engineer by training. A prominent member of the Tunisian Islamist Ennahda party. He fled Tunisia in 1991 under the oppressive Ben Ali regime, landing in Syria. It was there, in Damascus, that he was cultivated. He was introduced to the Izz ad-Din al-Qassam brigades, the armed wing of Hamas. They recognized his potential. They facilitated his travel to Iran for advanced training with the Quds Force, the elite overseas operations arm of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. He learned advanced drone design, evasive flight programming, and most importantly, operational security. He was taught how to live as a ghost. After the Tunisian Revolution in 2011, he returned home to Sfax, a respected figure in his community. He opened a small aviation modeling club for local youth, a perfect cover for his activities. To his neighbors, he was a quiet, pious family man. But to Hamas, he was the director of their UAV program. He wasn't just building drones, he was building an entire indigenous industry. He established covert workshops in Gaza, designed smuggling routes for components through the Sinai tunnels, and trained a new generation of engineers via encrypted video links. The Albatross wasn't just a ghost in the machine. He was the architect of the entire ghost fleet. The intelligence became a flood. A human asset in Gaza confirmed Zouari's role, providing details of his weekly encrypted communications. A signals intercept caught a Hamas commander in Lebanon boasting about their new Tunisian bird. The pieces were all there. Zouari was building a new generation of drones. These weren't just for reconnaissance. They were designed for coordinated swarm attacks, capable of overwhelming the Iron Dome missile defense system through sheer numerical saturation. And he was working on something else, something even more dangerous: an unmanned underwater vehicle. A submersible drone capable of attacking Israel's offshore natural gas rigs. The Tamar and Leviathan gas fields were Israel's economic lifeline. A successful attack would be catastrophic. The threat was no longer speculative. It was imminent and existential. In a secure briefing room deep beneath the Kiryat military headquarters in Tel Aviv, Ariel presented the complete file to the Mossad director and a small committee of senior government officials. He laid out the facts with clinical precision. He didn't use adjectives like dangerous or critical. He just presented the data: the drone's projected speed, payload capacity, and its guidance system's resistance to jamming. The facts spoke for themselves. The decision was unanimous. The equation had to be solved. Ariel was authorized to launch Operation Sundial. The objective was simple: terminate the Albatross project permanently. The mission genesis was rooted in a single, undeniable fact. Mohammed Zouari, working from his quiet home in Sfax, had become a strategic threat to the state of Israel. The rules of engagement were clear. This was not a capture mission. It was a targeted assassination. And it had to be done in a country that, on the surface, had friendly relations with Israel. The political fallout of a failure would be immense. It had to be clean, deniable, untraceable, a ghost hunt ending with a ghost. The plan for Operation Sundial was a masterpiece of layered deception, designed by Ariel to have multiple points of failure that wouldn't compromise the core objective. It began 6 months before the final action, with the creation of a legend. Dalia's team fabricated an entire media production company based in Budapest, Hungary, called Terra Verde Productions. It had a professionally designed website, valid corporate registration documents, even a portfolio of slickly produced, but entirely fake, documentary films. The company's star journalist was a woman named Maja Novak, a fabricated identity complete with a detailed social media history going back 5 years, a legitimate Bosnian passport obtained through a deep cover asset in Sarajevo, and a portfolio of published articles in minor European magazines. The agent playing Maja was a Mossad Katsa named Eliana. Her mission was to be the operation's canary. She traveled to Tunisia 3 months before the hit, ostensibly to produce a documentary. Her real job was to test the operational environment. She rented an office, hired a local driver, and conducted interviews with government officials, all while mapping the surveillance capabilities of the Tunisian security services. She tested their response times to minor staged incidents, noted the locations of CCTV cameras, and identified communications dead zones. Every one of her movements was a probe. She was also tasked with recruiting local logistical support without their knowledge. She hired a well-connected local Tunisian woman to be her fixer and translator. This woman, who believed she was working for a legitimate journalist, unknowingly rented the safe houses, the operational vehicles, and procured the batches of burner phones the team would later use. She was paid well, in cash, and asked few questions. This layer of insulation was critical. While Eliana built the local infrastructure, Gad and his operational team were training in a mock-up of Zuari's neighborhood, built to 1.1 scale in a remote part of the Negev desert. They practiced the intercept over 100 times, using identical Peugeot 208 and Renault Fluence vehicles. They war-gamed every possible contingency: a police car driving by, a neighbor intervening, the target fighting back, a vehicle malfunction. Each scenario had a pre-planned, rehearsed response. The technology for the mission was tailored and specific. The communication system, codenamed Lior, my light, was the centerpiece. It wasn't a radio. It was a network of encrypted microtransponders. Each team member had a device the size of a credit card that communicated using millisecond-long data bursts on a constantly shifting frequency, hidden within the signal-to-noise ratio of local GSM cellular networks using advanced steganographic algorithms. The data was relayed through a series of inconspicuous repeaters. One was disguised as a loose brick in a wall near Zuari's house. Another was placed on the underside of a public bus. These repeaters bounced the signal to a diplomatic vehicle parked in Tunis, which then uplinked it to a secure satellite. It was untraceable and unbreakable. The surveillance gear was equally sophisticated. The plan required constant, close-in observation of Zuari's residence. This led to the first on-the-ground high-risk maneuver. A week before the operation, a 2-man logistics team, call sign Plumber, arrived on the street. They wore the convincing uniforms of the local water utility, complete with forged work orders and a battered service van. Their task was to replace the cast-iron water meter cover on the sidewalk directly opposite Zuari's house with a Mossad fabricated duplicate. The duplicate was indistinguishable from the real thing, but it housed a high-resolution, motion-activated CMOS camera with a pinhole lens, a lithium thionyl chloride battery designed to last 3 months, and a Lior network transmitter. The installation was a high-stress operation in broad daylight. As one operative used a pry bar to lift the heavy cover, an elderly woman from the house next door came out to water her plants, watching them with suspicion. The second operative immediately engaged her, speaking in fluent, locally accented Arabic, explaining they were checking for a pressure drop reported in the area. The woman remained, observing. The pry bar slipped, the heavy iron cover clanging loudly against the concrete. The sound was like a gunshot on the quiet street. A police car, making a routine patrol, slowed as it approached. The operative talking to the woman waved casually at the police, who, seeing a mundane utility repair, continued on their way. The first operative finally seated the new cover, wiped sweat from his brow, and tested the signal lock with a concealed device in his pocket. A single vibration confirmed success. They packed their tools and were gone in under 120 seconds, leaving the suspicious neighbor still staring after them. They now had eyes on the target's front door. The weapons were chosen for deniability. The Beretta 71, a .22 caliber pistol, was a Mossad favorite. But the silencers for this mission were special. They were acoustic signature modulators, designed not for maximum sound suppression, but to alter the sound profile. Internal baffles and a precisely ported gas release system were engineered to change the sharp, high-frequency crack of a gunshot into a low-frequency thump that the human ear would register as a backfiring engine, a common noise in SFACs. The ammunition was subsonic. The weapons and modulators were smuggled into Tunisia in pieces, embedded within the engine block of an imported Citroën that was then delivered to a scrapyard, where a Mossad logistics team retrieved the parts. The plan was as close to perfect as Ariel could make it. But the operational environment of SFACs was more crowded than they knew. Concurrently, a team from the French DGSE was in the city, tracking a Libyan arms smuggler who was using the port to move SA-7 man-portable air defense systems to jihadist groups in the Sahel. The CIA had a small footprint as well, monitoring the flow of foreign fighters returning from Syria. The city was a quiet nexus of intersecting shadow wars. This created an environment of extreme risk. The first setback occurred 72 hours before the scheduled hit. The asset who had secured the speedboat for Plan A exfiltration, a local fisherman with significant gambling debts, vanished. A local operative sent to check found the door to his shack unlocked, a pot of tea still warm on the stove, and his burner phone lying smashed on the floor. He had either been arrested, had fled, or had been silenced. It didn't matter. Plan A was scrubbed. Gad immediately shifted the entire exfiltration strategy to Plan B, the overland route to Algeria. This was a significant complication. The sea route was a 90-minute ride to safety. The land route was a 7-hour drive through unpredictable terrain with multiple potential checkpoints. Then came the second complication, a technological failure. 48 hours before go time, the feed from the new water meter camera went dead. In Tel Aviv, Dahlia and her engineering team ran frantic remote diagnostics. "The battery is at 98%, an engineer reported, his voice tight. "The Lior transmitter is pinging our network. It's the imaging sensor. It's not responding to commands." Dahlia's fingers flew across her keyboard. "Try a hard reboot. Send the 404 Epsilon command string." They waited. Nothing. "It has to be the condensation," the engineer said. "The temperature dropped overnight. The sealant must have a microfracture." The sensors shorted out. On a secure video link, Gad's face was a stone mask. "So we're blind," he stated. "We have Miriam." Ariel's voice cut in. "And the vehicle tracker? It increases the risk, but it is manageable." We proceed. The loss of the camera feed introduced a new, dangerous unknown into the final moments. The third complication was the most severe. Dahlia's signals intelligence team, sweeping the local spectrum, detected a faint, encrypted burst transmission, military grade, originating less than a kilometer from Zuwari's neighborhood. It was a frequency-hopping signal used by the DGSE. The French were active, and they were close. Ariel dispatched Miriam, the spotter, to investigate the area of transmission near the port. Posing as a student sketching the fishing boats, she identified two men who fit the profile of European intelligence officers. They were too fit, their eyes scanning the area with professional discipline. Using a laser microphone aimed at the window of the cafe they entered, she caught a snippet of their conversation. The words, "Le Libyen," confirmed it. They were hunting the Libyan arms smuggler. But as one of the men turned to leave the cafe, Miriam froze. She knew him. His name was Jean-Luc, a former French foreign legionnaire she had encountered during a joint operation in Yemen years ago. He was presumed killed in an ambush that had gone bad. He was not DGSE. He was a mercenary, a ghost from a past operation, now apparently working for the French. And he was a man who knew Mossad tradecraft. The news hit the command center like a physical blow. In Tel Aviv, the debate was furious. The Mossad director was ready to abort. The risk of a blue-on-blue incident was a political nightmare. But a mercenary who knew their methods operating in the same square kilometer was an unquantifiable risk. Ariel argued passionately to continue. His presence is a coincidence, he insisted via the secure channel to Gad. He is focused on the port. To abort now, with the team in place, is the greater risk. We become the anomaly. We get noticed. Gad agreed. I can manage it. We stick to the timeline. We are ghosts. He won.